There are 14th Amendment citizens. This is the Constitution.
Listen, the most lawless people of America are in government. Anyone in government who does not uphold the Constitution, both state and federal, are lawless.
My name is Christopher Bronstein. I live in New Hampshire. Live free or die, you know.
He has helped Americans from around the world eliminate their income tax liability through his passport process.
It's like once you see the matrix, you can't unsee it. It's just there, okay?
Always wanting something.
Oh, welcome to Destination Freedom. I've got, let me see if I have my papers here. It's right in the middle of my broadcast. I had my stuff. Oh, well, maybe I can just do from my, I just have my papers here. So that's kind of, it's the 13th Amendment and the, one of the questions on there tonight. It's okay. I remember what they are. Well, anyway, welcome to Destination Freedom tonight on YouTube. And I just wanted to thank you for being on. I wanted to encourage you to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We love that the growth is steady and we'd like you to be a part of that. That way you get notifications for when we're going to do another broadcast and all that. And so we're delighted that you're on. And so tonight I was just really going to just take it easy and get into answering any questions or talk about this lifestyle of the state citizen. And before we get into that, there were just a couple things that were kind of current event or type of things that I had seen online that I wanted to just talk about on the broadcast tonight. One of them was someone brought up that Trump was talking about abolishing the IRS. And, you know, it's not likely. Well, first of all, what people think about where and how that income tax came about. Some people believe that the 16th Amendment gave the Congress what they're saying was the power to tax from whatever source derived. And there's many people who feel that that's just, you know, corporate gain and it's not individuals and all that stuff. What these people don't understand is that that's not really what creates the tax obligation is the 16th Amendment. That just makes it easier for the people to kind of accept it is because when the government says, hey, the Constitution says this, that we can do this and have this power. And the reality is that that's not really how it is and how it works out. That's if someone thinks that they don't really understand federal jurisdiction and what the Constitution actually says. Okay. If you know our group and you've heard me talk over the years, you know that it's Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, that the federal government has exclusive legislative authority in all cases whatsoever in their jurisdiction. And so they tax and regulate this federal citizen, this citizen of the United States, if you would. Most people don't realize that they're saying or claiming this citizen of the District of Columbia or U.S. citizenship, which is based in the 14th Amendment. That's the choice. And so that's the idea. That's why it's an excise tax based on a privilege and not that they're actually direct, you know, it's not a direct tax on your labor. It's the privilege that you're claiming yourself or, you know, are claiming. So that's the way that works. Because look, the reality is, and this is what I wanted to bring up, the 13th Amendment. If the 13th Amendment says that neither slavery nor involuntary servitude shall exist or shall not be in the states, except for if the person's been duly convicted of a crime. Okay, there is an exception to that slavery and involuntary servitude are illegal in the states. And what it says in the 13th Amendment is subject to their jurisdiction. Again, they are the states. This isn't the federal government. All right. So the idea there is an exception to slavery and involuntary servitude, and that's if you're convicted of a crime. But most people aren't convicted of a crime. So if the income tax is a tax on your labor without your agreement, it's involuntary servitude. And so the income tax would be illegal. It would be involuntary servitude. And of course, the Supreme Court hasn't declared that because it's not. You do have a choice whether you want to be a citizen of the District of Columbia. That's what a 14th Amendment citizen is. So that's what creates the tax liability. All right. Someone was talking also about, with respect to the 13th Amendment, they were saying that there was a state, I'm not sure which state it was, that was saying that they were going to now have prisoners do labor. It doesn't make sense that they're not utilizing that in essence free labor anyway. But prisons are corporations and they're there to make a profit, so it's got to be a profit deal for them. And so the idea is that people don't realize that the 13th Amendment allows for slavery and involuntary servitude if the individual is duly convicted. Okay, so it's already a constitutional amendment that slavery is legal when someone is duly convicted. And, there are states in which, or jails in which there's sometimes a sheriff will deal with prisoners in the same condition that they do our military when they're in the desert overseas and stuff like that. So it's not, because the military is in that way, they're not saying that it's cruel and unusual punishment. And I suppose there's certain work that can be cruel and unusual. Of course, you're not trying to kill people that don't have a death sentence in prison. But the bottom line is that they have to not only work to take care of themselves, there should be no burden to the taxpayer for someone being incarcerated. End of story, full stop. But because of the, is this the word, the pussification? Is that the word for men are no longer men today? I think that's the word, is pussification, and the idea is that, we have just such weak men that we don't even have that kind of, discipline in even the prisons. But remember, like the 13th Amendment says, duly convicted. Our justice system is definitely, I don't trust our justice system, because you have judges that are immoral and that it's a power trip for them. And the idea of that, even judges and the whole system doesn't bring justice. So we could say, when it says duly convicted, that, that may not be the case at all, which is why I generally would say that I support capital punishment. Okay. I do believe that and I'm not talking about manslaughter, but if you murder someone, you forfeit your own life. And so in that context, I'm an advocate of capital punishment. That being said, I don't trust government enough to that I would want to execute an innocent person. I think the system's so broken that I dare not support that the state is moral enough to actually take someone's life and that it would be just. So it's definitely dreadful, and definitely is a system that has to be amended or corrected. It's just terrible. So anyway, those are some things that I was thinking about. What was the other one? I did want to mention also, we had someone that was emailing us at statecitizen@destinationfreedom.org. And they had a question. I wanted to make sure that, and I wanted to see if there's no way for me to really tell if I want to see if I want to catch some of these questions. One of the, I believe it was a client that was asking about what they should do about jury duty. Okay. And let me just say this, because there's plenty of people, even freedom-minded people, that are still in the place to where they, and I don't know where this comes from, but they want to get out of jury duty. My God, people, that's a place where we must have freedom-minded people in juries, not only grand juries that don't have the same standards as a petite jury. Grand juries are looking to see if there's enough evidence there to bring somebody to trial. and prosecutors are controlling those grand juries, and the foreman or even the members of the grand jury, they can be requesting things and they just railroad them and they have their way with them. So prosecutors should be checked by a grand jury of what they allow, look at real evidence, and even bring in people who are being subpoenaed and are looking at where they're looking to get they're looking to just to be able to have enough evidence to depose somebody and charge them with something and have a trial. There's supposed to be high standards, but the people are there to protect them from an overreaching government. That's why we need freedom-minded people to be on these juries. So don't try to get out of them in that sense. That being said, usually they ask the question, are you a United States citizen? Now, when that question's asked, knowing that the Hooven case, that's the Hooven Allison versus EVAT, 1945 Supreme Court case, showed there are three definitions of the term United States. The second definition is the federal government, the District of Columbia, and the third definition is the states united under the Constitution. So there's different entities based upon different definitions or meanings. So the idea is that when the court is asking you, are you a United States citizen, you can't answer that question because you don't know what definition they're using in that situation. In New Hampshire, I think twice now I've been called to jury duty, but I remember when I was trying to get an answer to that question, they wouldn't answer it. They kept saying, I got to ask the judge. And then here it is. I haven't answered the questions. I'm not yet qualified as a juror. I'm in the courtroom. They're selecting juries for this case, and I'm there, not yet qualified as a juror because online the question hasn't been answered yet. So the court doesn't know if I'm qualified. I'm in the courtroom, and I'm not yet qualified as a juror. And so here comes the judge. They pull my name out of the hat. I'm now seated on this jury. Now, nobody's in that courtroom because they say, oh, I want to be on a jury. They're selected and subpoenaed to be there. They're being compelled to be on the jury. So the judge asked me, is there any reason why you can't be on this jury? And I said, I'm not yet qualified as a juror. He says, well, do you want to be on the jury? I said, that's not relevant. Because everybody's trying to get out of jury duty, and the court's going to compel them to be on the jury. It doesn't matter if I want to be. And the reality is, yeah, I want to be on this jury. But I'm still not qualified. That's what I should have answered was, yes, I absolutely want to be on this jury, but I'm not yet qualified as a juror. There are questions online that ask it. So I went out. He excused me. He can't excuse me from jury duty because I'm not on jury duty yet. I'm not yet qualified as a juror. So I went out to the clerk and said, I'm not coming back here again because he didn't answer the question. What is the definition of the term United States? So I can answer that question, yes or no. They didn't answer. Even the Supreme Court judge that oversees the courts in that capacity, I had a state rep reach out to the court about this, and she said she didn't know who I was, but there are these, sovereign citizens that tie up the courts. It's like, shut up. You don't know me, and I'm trying to get on the jury. These things are matters of statute and code. This isn't up for people's whims. What the hell are you doing? So I went ahead and stretched and said, listen, I wrote to the court and said, the State Department defines U.S. citizenship by the 14th Amendment. I wrote that to the court. They wrote back and said, well, that's how we define it, as the 14th Amendment as well. And I wrote them back and said, by what statute or code are you relying upon that you're basing it on the 14th Amendment? And she wrote back, the 14th Amendment. I'm like, great. So I went online. No, not a 14th Amendment citizen. Disqualify me. Now, as soon as that happened, I reached out to a state rep that's big in the 10th Amendment. That's power that's reserved to the states. And I said, the court just violated my duty to be on a jury. What are you going to do about it? So that matter is still at hand in New Hampshire, that we have to overcome that. But that's what that's what we're doing. So getting back to your question about jury, what you should do when you're called to jury, they're asking your question. Now, if you're a client, you have access to the alignment workshop on our website. That's DestinationFreedom.org. Now that we give clients support for that. It's the same thing whenever anyone asks you, are you a United States citizen? Or they're looking for social security number, tax ID, things like that. And so you have to qualify what is the definition of the term United States so you can properly answer the question. That's what you need to ask the court. And you're not going to ask the court on the phone. You have to do these things in writing because you need it on the record. You can't just go by someone's opinion because you have no proof they actually said or did what you're saying. You need evidence, which is it's got to be in writing. So you have to ask the question in writing, and then they have to respond in writing. That's the only way to handle it. Once you know the answer to that question, then you could say yes or no. And again, if they define it by the District of Columbia, like the 14th Amendment they do in New Hampshire, what that means is that the federal government is usurping its authority. Their citizens are in New Hampshire. And so that's a breakdown. Listen, there were juries convened before there was a 14th Amendment. So 14th Amendment citizens began with 1868. Before that, there were only citizens of New Hampshire. And so that's a breakdown. And that's based in habitation domicile. So anyway, I wanted to mention that about jury duty. And if you're a client, then you can request access to our client call, which is on Tuesday nights at 7. And we'll give you a link to the client call. That's not being broadcast. We do that. We have a lot of clients that show up in the call, and you get to hear other people's questions and stuff like that. And then I'll be able to answer your questions more directly. So would love to have you on that call. Again, that's only for clients. This is the format in which we allow, people that aren't a client to, get questions answered about our process and things like that. It looks like we got a number of them. So no questions yet. The question says, I was asking, what do I bring or say? Well, you can't go to your jury duty unless you qualify. If the question is, are you a United States citizen, then you have to reach out to the court in writing. They may have an email address or what have you, but you got to get the court to answer the question. That's what you need to do in order to determine whether you qualify for jury duty. And it's different from state to state sometimes. So you want to make sure that that's clear. I'll tell you, this union has made citizens of its own, and it made the free and independent states like one entity. It was a centralizing of power. It's really bad. It's really unconstitutional, the amount of power that they have, and they keep extending their jurisdiction into the states. It's not healthy. It's not good. And so you're welcome. The other thing was someone had brought up that Trump was going to abolish the income tax. Well, first of all, the president has no authority to abolish the income tax. Now, he could limit the IRS, which is under the executive branch. That's the Treasury Department, if you will, is where the IRS is. And of course, he can limit that. He can have it have it audited, or he can check in and see, how that entity's doing, certainly under his direction. So that's true. But with respect to taxation, only the legislature has the power to tax and to deal with that. That's got to be changed by statute. And certainly if he thinks he's going to abolish the 16th Amendment, you're going to have, not only is the Congress going to have to be on board with that, but then if they do pass the repealing of the 16th Amendment, yeah, good luck with that. They can't even balance their own stupid budget. They're not going to amend the Constitution. Then it has to be brought out to the states, and 3/4 of the states those legislatures have to vote to abolish that as well. So he may be the popular vote, but it'll be hard pressed to actually accomplish that. It's not likely. Listen, Frederick Douglass says, power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did, and it never will. Find out what people will submit to, and you'll have found the exact amount of injustice or wrong which will be imposed upon them. I mean, so the idea that the fact that people in America allowed their government to be collecting the fruit of their labor just tells you they're willing to pretty much do anything they say without the government, recoiling, knowing that they're violating their rights. Most people will think of the income tax as involuntary servitude because they don't know where the choice is. And that's the kind of citizenship you have. But I've talked to my son, and he talks about where is that line of how much people will take before they begin to push back and say, like that TV show where he says, I'm madder in hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. I mean, where do you get to that place to where this level of tyranny is enough? It's too much. It's too much. It's difficult enough to try to persuade people when I'm saying to you out there that there's a peaceful, easy way for you to stop filing and paying without violating anything in the tax code. And I tell you that, what does that mean to you? Are you still afraid? Listen, fear can be overcome by instruction or teaching. You just have to see it. You don't have to be afraid. We're not resisting. We tell people, listen, I'm telling you, the income tax is for all U.S. citizens, regardless of where they live, and resident aliens. That's what it says. That's what it's for. The definition of the term United States in the tax code is the District of Columbia. And the same thing for the word state. It's the District of Columbia. And you have to see it for yourself so that you can have that confidence to say, okay, I can go down this pathway. We agree with the IRS, sad to say. But that's why this is a peaceful process. There's no fight here. There's no tax resistance. That's not what we're doing. This is an administrative correction. Okay. And the thing about it is that we want people to just be willing to do the work, the little bit of work. Usually it's in the first year of making administrative corrections, okay? And this isn't straw man or, A for V or any of that sovereign citizen crap. We don't do any of that. This is just, you can see what you've agreed to or not. You can see these choices and you can make different or better choices. That's how simple it is. There's no reason for you, and you don't have to go it alone. We have a lot of personal support for you. We're building community so that you can do these things. And this is what I've told people before. Most of the time, people aren't having trouble with the IRS. Matter of fact, we have no clients that are dealing with IRS. Now, we have people that are having trouble with IRS that come to us, and we have to work those things out. But we don't have anybody that's having trouble with the IRS because we know how to have paperwork be correct. And where people have trouble is always going to be with the third party, the one asking for the social or the one that's going to be paying you. That's where you have trouble. And this is perfect for IRS to have ignorant, fearful people enforce, if you will, the laws that aren't applying to you. That's the beauty of the tax code, or how it's being implemented. It's just like when Agent Smith was talking to Morpheus when he says, take a look out there. What do you see? Billions of people living out their lives oblivious, like that. That's exactly how the tax code is being applied. People are just oblivious. They don't realize that they have a choice. So, all right, we have someone says on here, let me see. I think I can click on, how do I click on their, if I click on their, show it on stream. Okay, there it is. I see the button. It says, I ran across a definition of United States that includes the phrase continental United States. Is this the third definition in the Hooven? Thanks for that question. It's not, okay? The three definitions in Hooven, I'll deal with that in a second if you look at the context usually. And that is, the first definition is how you might use the word America. It is both of the definitions. That would include the federal jurisdiction or District of Columbia, Guam, Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, things like that. The second definition is the United States, which is the name of the federal government. That's the District of Columbia. And the third definition is the states. When you see the continental United States, okay, now you got to think about how it's saying. And again, you would know by its context. But if they're talking about the continental United States, they may be only talking about 48 states, and then that would not include all 50. So that wouldn't be the 50 states, because you're not going to exclude Alaska and Hawaii if you're going to talk about the continental United States. Okay. Now, there is federal parks, and whether this was intentional or not, I don't know. But there are federal parks or land in all 50 states. And if you look in the tax code for that term that way, you'll notice that they're going to be talking about inland seaways, and it's going to be talking about the environment. And so that's where if you are living or you're residing in any of those enclaves within these states, you too would be creating an income tax liability. And of course, those places are an extension of the federal government. And laws or crimes that take place in those places are federal issues, like at a post office or in a what they use the term national park when they're federal parks. Okay, because the states are actually natural. So that's usually the context. It's an environmental context of those things. It doesn't usually refer to the union. Now, if it said the 50 states of the union, or I saw in one code where it made reference to the 50, it made reference to the states, and then it said these countries, and it's like, wow, the statute actually recognized that the states are countries, and they are. And so you have to look at America the way you look at Europe. The Netherlands is not Germany, is not Italy. They're free and independent states, truly. It's in America, we've got this federalist propaganda thinking that we are one nation under God, indivisible. That's federalism horse crap. That's not what we have here. These are free and independent states. And you can see the states trying to push off these things. But it's difficult for a state to be free and independent as long as it's on the federal teat. As long as they're taking in federal dollars, they're not going to be grown up and mature enough to stand on their own feet. That's the breakdown. So no state, listen to me carefully, no state will ever secede from the union until they secede from mama's boobie, okay? When that happens, you'll see the federal law codes and statutes will leave, only to the degree that the people know that they're not federal citizens. Federal citizens are also being regulated in the states. That is what the 14th Amendment says. Citizens subject to the jurisdiction thereof. So remember, the federal government regulates their citizens worldwide. That would include in those states. And it's not because of a corporation or any of that stuff. We're talking about governments that have force and they shoot people and kill people. We're talking about a government, not talking about corporations. They form corporations to avoid responsibility. They do that for immunity, and they do that to borrow money. That's why they form corporations. What if the lands were not ceded? The federal government is not in any state without the permission of the legislature. That's what the 17th Amendment, that's what Clause 17 says in the Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. And you'll see, in a state's constitution, usually they'll make that distinction that the federal government cannot come into the state without the permission of the legislature. That's a fact and a reality. So any lands that are in the state, this is why that whole the zip code thing, the fact that you get mail at your house doesn't create federal jurisdiction. How do I know? Because the legislature hasn't allowed that. And if there was a murder at your house, it's a state issue. It's not a federal issue, like as if it was at a post office. Do you understand? That's why having the United States Postal Service deliver mail to your house doesn't make your house in federal jurisdiction. If you are a federal citizen, it doesn't matter where you are, the federal government is going to extend to. And also, when you bought or sold your property, you may have purchased it as it was a a United States real property interest, as it is in Title 26, Section 1445. Look that up. That's an extension. You are the interest of making this federal jurisdiction, not your land. A real property interest. That's what it means. Then this person says, why did she come up? Wait a minute. I have to push it harder. I'm admittedly confused. Oh, I'm sorry about that. We'll see if we can straighten that. Could you explain the difference between the process you facilitate and sovereign citizen movement? It says, what are the benefits, drawbacks? Cool. Well, thank you for that question. And that is a good question. What's the difference? First of all, if you want to understand how the federal government looks at the sovereign citizen movement, okay, you can go to the FBI website, but they're making reference to the sovereign citizen extremist movement, and they talk about it in there. None of our paperwork that we use makes reference to anything sovereign citizen at all. Usually what that is straw man type remedies where people believe that something was created in the birth certificate and there's a trust and all that. I don't have to go into all of it. That stuff is known, okay? And so people will generate certain kind of paperwork that they give out to all kinds of government entities. And they're saying, if you don't respond back and deny this within 30 days or 10 days or whatever it is, then you agree with me. Okay. They have no such obligation. That's why they don't answer it. Acquiescence, silence by acquiescence is only for people. Corporations and governments will animate something. They will be not silent if they answer it or deal with it. So it's the opposite of what people think. You have obligations. If you witness a crime and you don't do something about it, you can be an accomplice to that crime. That's a fact and a reality. So you can't just be silent when you notice a crime. Okay, that's a big deal. So again, getting back to the differences, all we do is take an opportunity to change what you've been agreeing to as far as citizenship. The IRS and the State Department define U.S. citizenship by the 14th Amendment. Okay. Article 4, Section 2 of the Constitution says the citizens of the states are entitled to all privileges and immunities of citizens in the several states. Before there was the 14th Amendment, there was no federal citizenship. There were only state citizens, and that's based in habitation and domicile. And so the idea of that is that you become a citizen by the choice of where you choose to create your habitation domicile. Now, that's not residency. Residency is always transient. You don't get to vote because you're a resident of some place, even though they want to use that term because they want all the college kids voting in two places. The communist, socialist, Democrat kids, they want them voting in two places. Okay, that's the breakdown because the courts are conflating habitation domicile with, residency. You know where you can vote because you can only have a driver's license in one state. That's where you vote. That's where you have habitation domicile. It's only in one state, one location that you can be on a jury. So voting, driver's license, and jury duty is based in habitation domicile. That even though they may use the word residence, they don't mean residency. Okay, they're conflating the term. Okay, you can't reside in Florida half the year and New Hampshire the other half of the year and think you can vote in both places, or that you can be in a jury because you'll only have one driver's license. That's how you can tell. So the process is all we're doing is that we apply for a passport with the State Department, and we let the State Department know we're rejecting that 14th Amendment citizenship, and we're claiming, if you will, our state citizenship based on habitation and domicile, and that becomes the foundation for all future paperwork. So whether driver's license, voting, or jury duty, we want to make sure it's all congruent to what we're declaring to the State Department. Because what I'm making up about you is that you've never been a 14th Amendment citizen. No one's ever said, hey, would you like to be a citizen of the District of Columbia, or do you want to be a citizen of the states? No one's ever asked you that. So I'm making up that you've never been a 14th Amendment citizen by choice. And the thing is that citizens of the District of Columbia, I'm sorry, citizens of Puerto Rico are U.S. citizens, 14th Amendment citizens, but they don't have representation in the Congress. They do with respect that the Congress controls that part of the federal zone. Same thing with Guam, Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, American Samoa. Those aren't states. They're U.S. citizens there. They're born there. They're U.S. citizens. You can naturalize into those places. That's just naturalizing into the federal zone. That's all. But we make a distinction in that, and we stay in the states. This is why federal gun laws are constitutional, because they're for U.S. citizens and the citizens in the District of Columbia. And Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 governs that law. They have exclusive legislative authority in all cases whatsoever. That's why federal gun laws are constitutional. And they don't violate the Second Amendment, because they're for the federal citizen, no matter where they are in the states or whatnot. Most people think the federal income tax is unconstitutional. It is not. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 gives them that exclusive legislative authority to create that kind of statute and code in their jurisdiction. It's why the federal government regulates food for these federal citizens and drugs for these federal citizens. Make sense? So what's sad, not only was it saying we agree with the IRS in that capacity, but it's my opinion the federal government is masterfully upholding the Constitution. Maybe the Constitution isn't giving us enough security. Maybe you have better choices. Maybe you can choose to be responsible for yourself. Stop looking to the District of Columbia to take care of you, and take care of your family, your friends, your neighbors. Speaking of like this shutdown, I think somebody on there was saying that, we're going into our fourth week. Oh my God, we're going into our fourth week. Wah, wah. Everyone on welfare. In what capacity? Young and old. Will that get cut off? Maybe. Why would you trust your government in that capacity? The idea is like, look, federal, just so you know, it's just 4 weeks out. They're going to get paid for every nickel. They're not losing money. They're just not working. They're not working, and they're going to get paid. How's that for a one? There you go, America. We love you. We love you, Trump. We love you. It's not going to change anything. Now, granted, he's going to let some people go. Well, great. I celebrate anything they can shut down finances that go in the federal zone. God bless America there. But this shutdown, listen, the government's bloated. Holy moly. What was it say? They were saying that people were, what was the word they were using? I can't even remember. I just posted something to the newspaper that the people were getting uncomfortable, and whatever word they were using. I was like, Americans, are getting uncomfortable. I'm not uncomfortable. I'm happy. I'm happy about this. Keep going. Matter of fact, don't bother showing up anymore. We'll be all right. And whatever you're not going to do anymore, don't worry. We can take care of that. We can be stupid in our own state. We don't need the federal government's bloating to take care of us. What? And they always shut down the parks. Why? Because you have to suffer too. Because that's how we're going to come back. Is because once you start suffering, the American people, then you'll ask for your torturer back. Frederick Douglass says, find out what people will submit to, and you'll have found the exact amount of injustice and wrong which will be imposed upon them. And these will continue until they're resisted with either words or blows, or with both. The limits of tyrants are prescribed by the endurance of those in whom they oppress. Now, here's what I want Trump to say. Trump, so if you're listening, here's what I want you to say. America, we love you, and therefore, here's what we're going to do. Just for you, America. We're not going to pay back all that the month that they're not working. They're not going to be paid for that. That's what I want to have him say. Yeah, that way all those people can take it on the chin. The way the American people took it on the chin when they were doing the COVID crap. Yeah, like that. And look, I know people that are on the federal dole. I know that. People that I love. I have no sympathy. Sorry. I don't. I think people can take care of themselves, and people have great ability. People will do the right thing if that's all they got, and certainly do things in their own personal interest. But that's just crazy. Let's see if I'm missing any other. So we don't do the sovereign citizen. We don't do all of the Anna von Reitz stuff. None of that. As a state citizen, do I have to pay taxes on my 401? If you don't have an income tax liability, will you be paying taxes on anything that's income related? You won't have capital gains. If you don't have an income tax liability, if you're a U.S. citizen or a resident alien, yes, you do that. A state citizen has no income tax liability. Is that clear? Has no income tax liability. That's the end of the matter. Now, you already, in your 401k, you already set it up as being a federal citizen. You filled out a W-9 saying that you have an obligation, and that that's why there's all the disclosure, or there'd be 1099s, things like that. So your paperwork's bad. It's not accurate. Okay. You didn't look up the terms. You don't know. And you're going by the way, the tradition that everybody tells you what you do. The people associated with the 401k, everybody's just going down the road doing what they always done. So when you make those changes, when you take the money out of there, which we highly recommend, is like, don't leave the money in banks or in stock market right now. You might not ever get it back, and it's being devalued all the time. And Trump, just one of the things Trump just said was, he was like, the Genius Act. How's that for a great name? When you smell the title of the act, not so genius act, for at least for America, be genius for them, not genius for you. In which Trump's going to here's what he says. What I was noticing the other day was that the banking system and the money in our country it's kind of archaic, it's not up to date. And so we got to bring it into the 21st century, up to 2025. So we're going to digitize the dollar. That's what they're going to do. It's going to protect the dollar. That's Federal Reserve talk all day long, because it's not about make America great. Okay. It's let me see, make bankers great again. That's what it is. And so the MB, the MAGBA or the MATBA, whatever it is, the acronym, right? But he serves Israel, and it's Israel and bankers first for Trump. That's what it is. It's awesome. It's going to be great. So you're going to have a digital currency for the dollar. We're going to continue to devalue it. It's going to be awesome. So take that dollar and buy tangible things, folks, And of course, if you're a federal citizen or a resident alien, by all means, be sure to pay the taxes that are due. You got to do that. Otherwise, it's illegal. But if you're not a federal citizen, you won't have an income tax liability. Okay, so how long? Here's someone's question. They said, how long is the process? Can I still work a normal job, or do I need to own my own functioning business first? Will it prevent me from getting hired? Excellent question again. Thank you for that. And yes, when you do this process, now there are people that have jobs when they begin this process, and that's fine, but those days are numbered, because you're not going to be employed by any corporation, because the corporation is not going to go down this pathway with you. They're just not. Because, not to say that we do have companies that do change from being in the public and go to the private. That's true. So if you had a company, you might make that change. But as an employee, you're going to be unemployable. Okay. And that's great. So whatever you do, you can do as a freelancer. If you love this company, you can work for them as a contract. You're going to have proper paperwork. There's going to be no 1099. You're going to be exempt from that. We have all that information for you and that support for you. Yes. So there's no job. You know what job stands for? Just over broke, So the idea is that you're going to move out of that. We're going to give you all that support and help you, but it will eliminate your income tax liability. Now, the great thing about working for a company and contracting with them is that you cut out the middleman, both the state and the federal. Okay. It's beautiful. So they could literally give you all of your money, and they don't have to match funds. So both you and the company get a raise. Awesome. Then you get to keep 100% of your labor, or what that is. So just cutting out the middleman is the raise. Now, many of our clients will actually, now that they're doing their own business, they get to reevaluate how much they get paid and what they're doing with their time. It's a powerful change, and we're going to help you and give you that kind of support. And again, you don't need to be hired. The beautiful thing about not having a job is that nobody can fire you. As long as you want to serve people and people want to be served, you'll have all the work that you care to have. And that's the beauty of it. It's very liberating. And listen, with the free aspect of the internet, and you've accessed worldwide and shipping and all, there's no reason for anybody to not make good money with the tools that are online that cost little to nothing. It's astonishing. You don't even have to own product. If you know where to get your product, you can drop ship. It's amazing what is available for people, but you're taught that jobs are important, because you can see that jobs, can go away in a swoop. There's no standing by a corporation for 30 years and they'll stand by you. They may be broke. And if you want to find out how good your company is that you're working for, find out how much debt they're in. Find out what the ratio between what they have as assets and what they have liabilities. You're going to know exactly how well your company's doing or not. Then they ask and say, is there anything I should do or take care of before beginning the process? Yeah, I would say that if you are married, I would highly recommend you might want to take the state citizenship class, which is on the website, 6 hours of some of the foundational stuff that we have. And if you have a spouse, then have them sit in with you on that so that you can see what it is that you have to do. You don't have to be full of fear or any of that. So that's one thing you can do is go to DestinationFreedom.org, take the state citizenship class, see if it resonates with you. Then you can begin. We have you do a hold harmless agreement, because everybody has to be responsible for themselves. And then we can do your passport process for you, which is more expensive because we're doing the paperwork for you. Or you can do the passport workshop, save yourself some money, and you can do your paperwork. We have templates and all that. So that's there. And usually, when we get around to the, serving our clients, we're on a schedule. And so usually like within a week or so, we'll be doing up their passport review. And then usually the State Department takes 4 to 6 weeks generally for expediting, but our process is as quick as expediting. And listen, I just want to tell you this. I don't know what the world's going to look like in the next 6 months, or look, Europe's going to start tracking travel in that way. And the federal government's probably the ones that are compelling them to track U.S. citizens in their travel and their bio data. It's the federal government that wants that. European and other countries, many times they don't want that, and yet central bankers want to track everything they do. So I would recommend moving on this stuff quickly, because who knows what's going to be available in the future, and especially in the area of travel. But a lot of our clients do these processes, and they're not interested in traveling. They want to be right where they are. And then someone says, it's all a joke. Quick Google shows that Trump and Hillary are 18th cousins. Who figures these things out? The illusion of choice, beautiful. No, listen, it's a mess. There's no accidents. These people in power have big plans. They implement their plans. They're in it for generations. They're in it for their family, and this is their conquest. If you think, kings of old are a thing of the past, you're not paying attention. The people don't even have to be called kings to behave like a king. There's these central, there are these mafias, if you will, these cartels that are running the world. They're running, and money comes and goes, and all that stuff still happens. This is what powerful, corrupt men do. But if powerful, good men do nothing, then they can do whatever they want. And that's where we are. And I don't know where that line is, the crossroads is going to be for that. I pray it never happens, but But my word, it's always encroaching on us. Our liberties are always pulling away, and we're not pushing back. And so the beautiful thing about our process, or these kinds of processes, that you can secede from the union in your own personal life. You don't have to wait for your state to do it. You can just do that in your own life. And you don't need anybody's permission. You just decide to do it. That's what's so good. British, let's see, what is it? The British enslaved us through the 16th Amendment, Feds and IRS. No, the British enslaved the federal citizen and, of course, the resident alien. Don't throw us in there. You have a choice. You don't have to do that. So there's no enslavement in that capacity. The enslavement is that you didn't know or didn't realize that you had a choice. And it's not about the choice about taxation. All taxation is collected under pain of death. Okay, that's a reality. But you don't have to deal with this tax. We're taxed. We're overtaxed, and everything that you buy from corporations is taxed again and again. Every time raw material becomes something else, they add taxes into all those corporations. So you're overtaxed. This is the one tax you can control, and what a blessing that would be. So anyway. Let's see. What was there? There was someone had let me see if I get this question here. Is there, so this is the one question. Is there a do not drain code on the national passport? Oh, I'm sorry. Do not detain. No, I've seen no facts or evidence to support that. There is no 5 stars on the passport. That's just patriot mythology. We deal with, they talk about that in the class so that you can see that. But I've seen no actual facts to support that there's no do not detain. That's like a YouTube thing. You won't get to see it. You just are seeing something, but what we're making up about it is there's nothing. Still, it's a federal passport. The federal government's not acknowledging this. What you get after you do this process is we do a FOIA request, and you get certified copies of your passport file, wedding signatured, signed by the Secretary of the United States. That's a thing. And so you'll get that. That's what you'll have to hold in your hands, showing that this is what you submitted to the federal government and is true under penalty of perjury. Okay. All right. So it's glad to see you on. Let's see. Glad to see you, Matt. I'm glad to see you on here. I think we have a communication going on, and hope to get back with you on some of that. Then there's another one that says the person's ready to switch. I have to convince my wife. It's a tough one. All right. I'll convince your wife. Don't you worry. Just have her sit next to you. Get her some popcorn and get her one of those. No, don't get her a large drink. Get the small drink so she doesn't have to get up and go to the bathroom. But no, we got 6 hours of sharing. So set a romantic table and put the laptop, and then I can serenade you guys and talk about liberty and freedom and federal jurisdiction. No, listen, you have to have your wife go along with it. And again, this is not difficult. We've had no clients dealing with the IRS. We're thankful for that. So this is not a fight. This is just an administrative correction. That's all. And it'll work out great for you. Okay. So, well, listen, everybody, thank you so much for being on tonight. And I appreciate you a lot. Oh, it's coming. I appreciate your sentiment. Well, that's cool. Oh, they laugh you down. Listen, I've had them laugh me down too. But it's okay. It's like, you can just ask them and say, hey, how's that working for you? When April 15th rolls around and they're like, oh, I got to file. You're just like, well, I don't do that. Listen, I stopped filing back in the 90s. Okay. It's a delight. And so I'm just thankful. Okay. That we agree with the IRS. Listen, when you agree with the IRS, what they're doing, you realize this is not a fight. It's just a joy. So anyway, it doesn't have to be that way. Be sure to like and subscribe and follow us and all those things. I appreciate that. And listen, would you do me a favor? If you think this is a great video or you enjoyed it, would you pass it on to your friends or would you post it on your social media and all that stuff? We'd just love to get that bump. And it matters because it really makes a big difference. And people who love you and trust you and believe you, it gives me credibility because of you. So thank you for that, and I appreciate you. So be well. We'll see you next week, and we'll talk to you later. I'm Christopher Gronsky, and this is Destination Freedom. So take care. I'm going to see if now we'll get to do our, there we go.
Do not wish this life to pass away, but life presents such possibilities each and every day. I heard a calling that was right for me. I prayed for strength for what's ahead of me. Show me the show me the way. The sun rose high and burnt the night away. Who stood before me was my enemy. Don't tread on me. He's come to take away my liberties. I'd rather die than be a slave to thee. Don't treat me